Inzelt, and I'm working as an assistant professor at the European University in Budapest, Faculty of Law, Department of Criminology. It is a great honor for me to sitting here in Malaga, the 2020 annual conference of the European Society of Criminology, and making this interview with Professor Miklo, who is a professor at the European University at the Faculty of Law, Department of Criminology. He is head of the MA and a PhD program in criminology at ELTA. He is the head of the doctorate in cultural and global criminology program, working as a part-time professor at the Széchenyi University, Faculty of Law, Department of Social Sciences, as well as he was a member of the Constitutional Court of Hungary. And before joining the European University, he had been working at University of Miklo. Do you remember what was the first time when we met?
Not really.
Okay, then I recall this moment because it's really precious for me. I was a second year law student, and there was the oral exam for criminology, and you were my examiner. And I remember that we have a great conversation, of course, about what was the topic of my exam, but after we finished the exam, we continued to talk to each other, and it was a really great discussion. I haven't experienced this before, and after the exam, I remember that you approached me a question that would I like to work with my yearly thesis during my studies, and I said yes. And then, the rest is a history, but of course then I wrote my final thesis to having my law degree, and then I'm doing my PhD under your guidance. So yeah, it was a great moment for me. And just to get back your professional career, after you finished law school, what was the reason or how you turned to criminology?
Before answering your question, first of all, I'm really sorry again that I don't remember that the first meeting of us, and thank you so much for this comprehensive introduction. Now, back to the question. Yes, I was a law student between 1975 and 1980 at the European University in Budapest. And in that time, and fortunately today, the criminology is an obligatory course at the law faculty, the law faculties, and actually that was my favorite subject. It was a two-semester program in criminology, and the Department of Criminology offered, but anyway, let me correct myself. Department of Criminology was founded in 1979, and as I mentioned, I was a law student between 1975 and 1980, and in that time it was just a teaching section of criminology inside the Department of Criminal Procedure. But the bottom line, that teaching section had an excellent, how can I say in English, scientific program or scientific group for students, and headed by or supervised by Katalin Göncel. Later, she became, for example, one of the founding fathers of the European Society of Criminology, and she was so enthusiastic for the students, and there was a special program of this student group as a voluntary probation, not officer, but it was a voluntary probation job. We went to the juvenile facility, which is not far from Budapest, and before releasing a given juvenile inmate, we visited him and tried to help the first days, weeks of the new life after releasing, coming out from the prison. So it was really interesting job. It was a really interesting program, because not just learning, for example, what does it mean resocialization, reintegration of juvenile delinquent, actually boys, but we had the opportunity to do something in the practice for rehabilitation, and we had to keep the contact with the released juveniles at least, if I remember well, for 3 months, and we have to write a so-called diary, and Katalin Göncel read all of the diaries and evaluated it from professional point of view. Our job was nice or not, what did we do wrong, what was nice. So I think that was the really triggering factor or source of my future career.
Yeah, and I think it's really great that it's still working, this program.
Yes.
Until nowadays. So,
yeah.
All the students are really grateful to do this,
you
this
are
program.
Right. Yeah, you are right.
And just get back to the beginnings.
Okay.
So at the 1980s, you started to deal with drug crimes, researching drug crimes, but it was not easy at that time. What was the reason you picked up this issue and started to doing research on that area?
So after getting the law degree, I wanted to teach as a university lecturer, and I got a job, the newly established law faculty at the University of Miskolc. Miskolc is located in northeastern part of Hungary, and the university had 3 technical faculties and wanted to make progress of the university and increasing the programs of the university, and in 1981 a law faculty was founded, and I got a job, and it was interesting because the head of the department, the name of the department was Department of Criminal Sciences, and inside the department I could deal with criminology. However, the head of the department, Professor Tibor Horváth, told me that okay, I know that you are interested in criminology, but if you would like to be a criminologist, at first you have to learn criminal law and you have to teach criminal law. After 3-4 years, you could begin to teach criminology. Now, okay, but actually in 1984 I started to teach criminology, and I started to do research. And my research area and subject was the juvenile delinquency. And dealing with the juvenile delinquency in Hungary, I noticed and realized a new form of deviant behavior, mainly in Budapest and the bigger cities. A group of young people used special pills with drinking alcohol, and it's okay. It was some kind of drug use in a special circumstances which we had during the 1980s. The so-called real drugs or hard drugs couldn't be reached who wanted to use those kind of drugs, and a weekly of the medical sciences published. It's very often about this group of people, a new ways of deviant behavior among the Hungarian juveniles. And I decided, okay, I try to do research in this area. So it was unfamiliar with me in my generation, this kind of deviant behavior, and it was an unknown subject in that time in the Hungarian criminology. So I tried to find a new subject, and I interested in very much how about the reasons and the background of those juveniles and young people, and of course because using drugs it was and it is a crime in Hungary, they were criminalized, and I would liked to understand the relationship between those juveniles' behavior and the taking and using drugs.
You mentioned that some medical journals already dealing with this subject. Did it have some serious consequences, health consequences at the time?
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, it was very important that there is no treatment facilities. There is no social service for dealing with those juveniles. And another finding was, okay, they are actually criminals. What should we do with them, because they are not the same criminals as, for example, who committed robbery or violent crime and so on. There is no infrastructure in the Hungarian social service, and the question is, could we offer inside the criminal justice a new ways for them, which is not stigmatized those juveniles.
Yeah, you mentioned that it was in the middle of the 1980s.
Exactly.
And you mentioned already that there was no enough, no possibility to having serious drugs, so-called serious drugs like they used to use at the time, for example, in Western Europe. And I'm curious about that. What had been changed after the change of regime in Hungary in 1989, both about the situation of drug crimes, but how the change of regime, for example, affected your situation as a criminologist or a researcher, so how it's affected your career?
Okay. At first, let's see the drug situation. Fortunately, during the late 1980s, a few outpatient drug clinics were founded and set up in Hungary, which was really important. And from the point of view of criminal justice policy or criminal law legislation concerning drug offenses, in 1993, that was the first large and overall modification of the Hungarian penal code after changing the regime. And from the point of view of drug criminal law, that modification introduced the so-called diversion opportunity for drug users, not the traders and not the dealers, not the pushers, okay, but just who simply a consumer. And it was really important because if an accused person accused by a drug offense, taking drugs, using drugs, the prosecutor or the judge had the opportunity to offer him or her a diversion program. And if he or she accepted and he or she participated for a year this diversion program, the criminal procedure after the 1 year could be completed without any serious legal consequences, and punishment without any punishment. Treatment instead of punishment. That's the slogan of the diversion program.
Yeah, it's a great establishment and change.
Yeah. And now,
as far as your personal career concerned?
As my personal career, for my personal career, it was really nice that I could get scholarship for Western European countries, actually for the United States. However, I must say before 1990 I got scholarship because I wanted to learn and wanted to study other countries' criminal justice system, juvenile delinquency, drug situation, not just in Hungary, but other country or other countries. My first foreign country visit happened and took place in 1985, when I got a scholarship and I went to Poland for 3 weeks. And I visited the University of Krakow, University of Lublin, and the University of Warsaw. And it was really useful. It was a really difficult political time and situation in Poland in that time. However, the legal education and the education of criminology and research programs in the field of criminology were really developed, and I learned a lot. It was interesting. And in 1986 I got a 1-week scholarship for Finland, Helsinki. Actually, I got this scholarship from the HEUNI, the Helsinki, the United Nations European Crime Institute, or European Crime Prevention and Crime Control Institute, affiliated with the United Nations. That's the English abbreviation HEUNI. It's opened a new world for me during that week, from many point of view: the research opportunity, the relationship between the professionals and human beings. And the country and Helsinki itself. It was a special situation of Finland. I mean, the relationship between Hungary and Finland, because Finland was not a part of the Western world. However, it was more opportunity doing research, and the freedom of scientific life and the freedom of academic life was much more better than in Hungary. And okay, and I fortunately 2 years later, in 1988, I got a 2-week scholarship from the EUNI, and I think it was a very important factor to complete my PhD dissertation on drug criminality and drug criminal justice from a comparative point of view, because during that 2 weeks, more or less, I collected and studied the most important Western literatures on the subject. Now, and in 1991, I had the opportunity, because I won a scholarship. It was a special scholarship, IREX, provided by the United States of America for the ex-socialist countries' young researchers. And I applied for a 5 months scholarship, and the autumn, yes, the autumn of 1991, I went to the Salin Center of Criminology of the University of Pennsylvania. In that time, the director of the Salin Center was Professor Marvin Wolfgang, one of the very important persons and really important criminologist, not just the United States. His professional life and research is mainly for a longitudinal research program is very well admired, and he was really helpful. And I could join his class, and I have learned a lot. I have completed my PhD in that time, but that 5 months was some kind of postgraduate education for me. And later, during the academic year of 994, I could spend 1 year at the School of Criminal Justice and Criminology of the Rutgers University. I think I have to thank, and I had to thank this opportunity for my wife, because my wife got a 1-year scholarship for the Rutgers Law School. And I sent a letter to the Dean of the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice, and Dean was at that time Ronald Clark, the leading expert and criminologist of the rational choice theory in criminology and the situational crime prevention. And I asked, could I get any kind of scholarship, or just could I do research without any financial background, because my wife will be a Fulbright scholar. And he was so nice, and I think it was founded a fellowship, a library fellowship of the school. The school has an excellent library. So, and I got not too much money, but it was okay, and I had the opportunity to be part of the life of the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice. I got this library fellowship, and I could meet excellent criminologists like the mentioned Ronald Clark. Gerhard Müller was really friendly with me, Frieda Adler also, and both times and occasions William Laufer helped me a lot. So that was really important for my career. And the later what I wanted to modify or introduce in the field of teaching criminology and criminological programs in the Hungarian higher education, because I have learned a lot how about the US system working.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, after the transition, then the borders collapsed in that sense, and really the world opens for criminologists, and not just you were involved in this kind of Americans, but European scholarships as well. So as far as I know, you went to Freiburg as well with the German scholarship, and of course you were a part of the European Society very from the beginning, and I remember that when I was a second year PhD student, you forced me to come to the annual conference in 2009 in Ljubljana, and I will always grateful for this to force me to do so, because from that time I'm attending the ECS conferences, and it's a really great experience. As you are past president of the ECS, what does the society means to you, the European Society of Criminology?
Okay, so I'm glad that I helped you to join this society, and today you are. Later, I know you became a board member, and today you are a very influential member of the society with nice and important positions. So yes, I think this society is really important, not for the European criminologists, and not just criminologists. Academics who are interested in crime problem and working of the criminal justice system and social deviances. And so this society was founded in 2000. But anyway, Katalin Göncöl, as I mentioned, she was one of the founding members, and this is a great adventure. And the founding fathers were so smart, and that was the interest and for the development of the European criminology. So before 2000, the most active international organization in the field of criminology was the International Society for Criminology. For example, the society had the 1990 Congress in Budapest, and a few Hungarian criminologists and experts were very much involved in that society. However, this is not a European, this is an international society, and in that time every 5th year was a congress of the society, and sometimes regional conferences. But it was not enough to dealing with the European problems of crime and criminal justice, and was not enough to make contact and connections between a European criminologist and relationship between European criminologists and American and Canadian and so on, experts and academics. And it was really important for the ex-socialist countries, professionals, academics in the field of criminology and criminal justice. In this way, our region's criminologists, criminal justice experts could be very much more involved the international community of the criminologists, and so from our region it is a really important point of view of the future of criminology in Europe. So it's, as I mentioned, this is a really great adventure or invention, intellectual invention.
Yeah. As far as inventions concerned, just to go back to the national Hungarian contest, please give us an overview about the introduction of a criminology master program in Hungary, because it was a great step ahead, I think, that we have this kind of master program.
Yeah, you are right. As I mentioned, the criminology was just an obligatory subject course until 2011.
For law students.
For law students,
yeah.
Yes, for law students, and it was obligatory course for the students of the law enforcement faculty of today the University of Public Service. Today the University of Public Service. However, if you would like to get more scientific, theoretical and professional knowledge, you didn't get opportunity. For example, there was no BA in criminology, there was no master's program, there was actually we wouldn't say that there was no PhD program in criminology, because the law faculties inside the PhD program, 2 or 3 law faculties had criminological programs, but there was no a solid basis for the criminological knowledge and profession. And at the Department of Criminology in our university, we started to discuss what should we do, how could we make progress in the field of teaching criminology and doing research in criminology. And now, in 2007, we decided we should try to set up a master's program in criminology. And the faculty council accepted our plan and proposal, and we started to work out the program of the master's program in criminology. And it was a long process. Participated all members of our department, and in 2011, in September, we could start the master's program in criminology with 42 new students in criminology. And now our faculty has this master's program, and the University of Miskolc has also a master program. And since 2013, we have a PhD program in criminology. So I think it's a huge progress. You were involved a really important phase when we worked out the details of the program and the curricula of the master's program.
Yeah, and all the accreditation process.
Yes, Katalin Göncöl, Andrea Borbiro, David Víg, Csaba Győri. Yes. And it was a collective job. I liked very much.
Yeah. I have good memories for this. Yeah,
it was difficult because the so-called Hungarian Accreditation Committee, because the decision to set up a new master's program, that's the job of the Hungarian Accreditation Committee, and the requirements, it's very strict. Fortunately, it was the first time accepted our program, a criminological master's program, without any vote against the program.
Yeah, and high quality standards, strict regulations and high quality standards as well.
Yeah.
Despite your academic activities, you were a constitutional court judge. Could you describe how it has affected your way of thinking about crime as a social phenomenon?
Oh, it's a difficult but good question. Yes, I was elected by the Hungarian Parliament in 2007, a judge for the Constitutional Court for 9 years, and yeah, it was a very big challenge for me as a criminologist. Should I have to forget everything? Because the Constitutional Court deals with legal questions and cases based on the rules of the Constitution, not based on research findings and so on. And it was difficult. How can I use my criminological knowledge? But I could use. There are some cases, decisions of the court when I could use my criminological background. Let me give you just one example. The resolution, I think that's the official name of the decision of the court, resolution number 144 from the year of 2008. It was an interesting case. We should deal with the regulation and rules of the criminal record. The question was, it's not that the rules on criminal records is not against the rules of Constitution concerning the human dignity. If somebody who was sentenced and this sentence is too much in the criminal record, he or she couldn't get a job, couldn't, the reintegration and resocialization is really difficult. And the court abolished many rules of the criminal, at that time, Act on Criminal Records. And I was the reporter of this case. And in the reasoning, you can find one or two sentences, more or less the following. The reintegration or resocialization is part of the human dignity, and the state should provide, should keep the human dignity, not just the ordinary people, but the ex-offenders. So I was happy when my colleagues accepted this part of the reasoning of that resolution. I'm not so happy. How about the situation with the life imprisonment without parole? In the Hungarian Criminal Code, you can find this, this punishment, and in our constitution, the official name of the Hungarian constitution, in the fundamental law, I was not success in this case. So I just write in papers and articles about this issue, but as a constitutional court judge, I couldn't do too much with this punishment.
Yeah, but it's not your fault, so.
Not really.
Yeah, you mentioned different interesting research areas and topics during your constitutional court judge period, but what are you dealing with right now? So what kind of research interests do you have nowadays?
So it comes from my constitutional court judge practice that in the past few years I'm interested in from the human rights point of view, the life imprisonment and life imprisonment without parole. I follow the practice of the European Court of Human Rights on this issue. What is the requirement based on the Convention of the European Convention on Freedom and Human Rights, so I'm interested in very much, and from comparative point of view, that's one subject. Another one, the juvenile justice. I started my research career dealing with juvenile delinquency and juvenile justice. I'm focusing on not just the Hungarian juvenile justice system, but how about in the other countries? How about that country which is which introduced the juvenile court in the modern era, the first time, the United States of America. So that was the reason that I applied for a Fulbright scholarship, and I got it in 2018, and I could go to the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice of the Northeastern University, and I got really nice impressions, and I have learned a lot from Professor Simon Zinger, who is a really good expert in this subject. So I'm dealing with this issue. However, actually, what I'm focusing now, it's a policy issue, criminal justice policy, mainly in Hungary. What's going on from the changing of regime? Can we keep that human rights aspects, criminal justice, or why we don't follow that kind of human rights driven criminal justice policy nowadays? And how about the other ex-socialist countries? So I try to organize a comparative research. Comparative would cover the ex-socialist countries' criminal justice policy.
Oh, I see. And after your 4 decades experience teaching, researching and supervising 17 defended and 6 ongoing PhD students' work, how you see the state of art of Hungarian criminology currently?
From institutional point of view, this is a really nice period. It's a really nice period. What do I mean? We have teaching programs in criminology, all of the law faculties. We have our department as the master's program. As I mentioned, the University of Miskolc Law Faculty also has a master's program. The National Public Service University's Faculty of Law Enforcement has a nice and good quality department of criminology. A few BA and master's program in sociology have sort of criminology course for teaching criminology as a subject. We have a Hungarian Society of Criminology. This is the leading professional organization in the field of criminology and criminal justice in Hungary, which was founded in 1983. We have an excellent criminological research institute that the Chief Prosecutor Office Institute, National Institute of Criminology. So the institutional background is nice. The point is, how could these institutions can work? Doing research, because they get financial sources, doing research. Is it possible doing research, for example, in the prison and in other institution of the criminal justice system? There is enough academic freedom doing research in the field of criminology, and how about the future generation? I mean, the future generation is important to get research opportunity, financial sources for doing research opportunity. The most talented PhD students could get a job at the universities. So we will see.
Yeah, lots of open questions, but thank you very much for this really interesting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva, and thank you for the really nice questions.
You're welcome.